note of the elephant that is broken free and a Pichika who is about to break free. Okay? It's a haunting raga called Punnaga Varali. Punnaga Varali, anybody know it here? Anybody know Punnaga Varali? Okay, so Punnaga Varali is very close to the South Indian Todi, which is not like North Indian Todi. You may know North Indian Todi. This is a different thing, much closer to the Bhairavi Tat in North India. And that means it goes sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. Hear that? Ni sa. That's the note you have to listen for. So At the time, I would take you through the thing phrase by phrase, and you would see how the composer has built up, bit by bit, this image of the goddess in a kind of three-dimensional world where there is a visual image somewhere, but also an oral image, a sound image. So I want to come back to the problem that I mentioned at the beginning, which is what happened in Carnatic music to allow it to take the form that it has taken today. And what I want to argue is something like the following. We're talking about a change in audience also. If you think of a place like Manali, this place where people are making money and you have nouveau riche and it's a kind of cosmopolitan area, you have a kind of emerging new middle class audience of people who are listening to music in what is in effect a kind of musical salon. This is not the royal court and this is not the temple. And that's what you have in Madras if you go to a concerti today, that kind of an audience. So, there's, how should I say this? There's a kind of problem in reconstructing the mental world of the early audiences of Muthuswami Dikshita. And perhaps not all of them were aware of the fact that he had created a kind of musical revolution by these techniques of oralization and iconicity that I've been mentioning. He has made possible a situation where you're not in a kind of temple liturgical or ritual context. You're also not sitting in the royal court. You're listening to the music in some kind of internal space in the mind, which has a kind of meditative and contemplative quality, which somehow is meant to evoke the existence of this goddess. So here's another word you could use. You could call it interiorization, a kind of interiorization. Actually, Dikshitar himself has a phrase for this. In reference to this same goddess, he talks about Bahir Antar Yaga, that is the ritual or the sacrifice yaga, which is external and internal. So internalization or interiorization is an old word and a big word and a heavy word in the history of South Asian religion. But here's one way we could talk about what he has done. He's taken something that existed in another context and turned it into a kind of meditative practice that involves a particular kind of mental activity, and it's possible to do just like you did it here. And I with you, that is, sitting and listening to music and letting the goddess take shape in your mind as a listener. That, again, I want to say that is something which I think has been lost today. I don't think that people who go to listen to Carnatic music routinely do this. And even the performers, well, Krishna, we had a long conversation about it, and I think he knows about that. He's maybe one of the very few who have still retained this link to the older tradition. There's also a kind of grammar of performance, and if we had time, we could talk about the grammar of performance, because there are different elements here that one can actually find. But I hope at least the sort of basic idea that I'm trying to present you made some kind of sense. So just 1 second. Yeah, please. Yeah.
I find it very interesting that the association to sound of the and the swara. Because I'm constantly mindful of the association with the swara with the kind of emotions that power that is.
Yeah.
And also because my work is somewhat related to that, so I'm constantly thinking towards that. And the idea of the need and the way she's thinking it, the oscillation, Alankara and Viryanka that she is doing, it's already creating that impact of echoes. It's almost as if she is trying to build up a story, which is also related to the content. And that it's all I can almost see that it will go into a culmination or deepening of that canvas. And as you said, it does go to that
That's right. Yeah, I'm glad you're able to do it. So, I mean, there are obviously a number of elements of it, right? There's the emotional part of it, there's the particular emotion of that raga or that time of day or night, right? There's also a color that is associated. Each of the notes has its own colors. Actually, there's a long table of correspondences. Every single one of these sagas has this whole series of elements, and they're actually part of this system. So,
the second one that we heard, that we were talking about Arabic.
Yeah.
So, in any of the swaras, the flat notes of each of the swaras, they're always related to some polarity, some tension, and too much more tension.
Yeah.
It's always the beat ma or their everything, and they're always related to some tension, some ambiguity.
Right.
And when you mentioned the description of the goddess, and then you said gender ambiguity, of course it's a subjective meaning.
Yes.
But then you feel that the tension could.
It's a little less subjective than the first. I mean, it's a little bit of a subjective meaning, I agree. But actually, if you follow the verbal text, then you'll see that it's quite explicit there. You know, a principle of radical iconicity, what we're talking about, you know, might at first hearing look a little bizarre. I myself sometimes, you know, if I think about it, think this can't possibly be right. You know, how could something have been orchestrated in that way with that kind of level of specificity? But the minute I have that thought, I begin to remember things that the musicians themselves took me. And in fact, everybody who knows Carnatic music knows that this is the case. Sometimes there are incredibly rich examples of it. For example, Ichika has a Kriti on Vishwanatha, in which there are 14 ragas, and these ragas read in a certain order. They correspond to the 14 lokas, the 14 worlds. If you read them, if you sing it in a particular order from beginning to end, you're actually in what they think of as pravritti, that is the creation of these 14 worlds, each world corresponding to a particular loka, to a particular raga. If you sing it backwards, which is a technique which exists throughout all of Indian literature, you read the thing forward or backward, and it's a nivritti, so that these lokas are reabsorbed into the initial state. And like that, there's a kind of mantric business that comes into this, sometimes into this. You could say that this is Carnatic music seen as a kind of extension of mantric practice. But again, I want to say this will sound exotic if you go and talk to people from Chennai and tell them that actually they're kind of, these pittis, they have a little mantric element, and then they may find this very odd and surprising. That's because we've lost the protocols of listening. We've forgotten what it means, and we've also perhaps lost the mental faculty, which is part, an intrinsic part of the ways of listening and using this. So, a lot has changed in Carnatic music, there's no doubt, and a lot has been lost. And we could also talk about the singing styles, because I have a particular feeling about the way Carnatic music is usually sung. A lot has been lost, but among the things it seems, and a lot has been preserved, because Carnatic music is flourishing today as never before. It's perhaps of all the traditional Indian arts, the one that is most intact, along with Hindustani music. And nonetheless, this particular part of it, which seems, I think, to be the kind of secret technique that explains the whole transition, this astonishing historical transition in conflict, that I think we forgot. Somebody else, yeah, I'm just
kind of talk time forward from the competition.
Yeah.
Just to go time backward.
Yeah.
So I have a small question for you, which is, we're looking at from, let's say, the Chola period onwards in the world of the Kaveri Delta and beyond, of a movement of the god outside of the temple into Utsav-murtis, into
always been there, even earlier.
Even, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, out of the temple and closer into a wider and wider audience, in some sense, through the Utsavans and all these sort of stuff. So here is this sudden moment, which I understand it very fully when you're talking about what you're saying. Along with that movement out of the temple, a whole set of other things develop. Prasadam that can travel, images that can travel, swamis that travel, everything. Here is this thing that you hold in yourself and travels with you.
That's right. It's a very portable thing. Actually, there's a tension built into every single murti, every murti that is fixed in place in a temple, and that's every temple. There's always a tension between that fixity and the wish to get him into movement. So it's constantly being put in. But that's a standard feature already in the very, very ancient times. But here we're talking about a shift into a new audience entirely, to a middle class audience, and indeed, exactly as you said, it's a very portable thing. You don't actually need the temple anymore. Go to the temple and all of that, but you can have the temple inside your ear or inside your mind. And we have a very astonishingly sophisticated technique that has been developed in order to enable that to happen.
This is a very small personal story. My grandfather hated Carnatic music and worshipped the images. And the conflict between the word, for him it was a conflict between this inner construction and this image worship.
Right.
It was very interesting.
It is a conflict in a way, a potential conflict.
Around this time, there were musicians who refused to go to court.
Tyagaraja
himself. There was a great legendary singer called Baidevi Venkateswara. Tipu summoned him to his court. The legend goes that he cut off his tongue.
So that you wouldn't
sing in the king's court. Of course, Tipu didn't ask him to do that, but he did for it. And secondly, this Srishti Samhara thing is very much part of Tantric practices. It's the Sri Chakra. If you move from the center to the periphery, it's Srishti Krama. Move from periphery to the center, Samhara. It's similar in Mantra Shastra, they're all in the Mantra.
That's right.
the same mantra, if it's said in the Samvara way, it has, may have a implicit effect. If you reverse it, it will become Mara.
There's Dikshita mentioned what's called the Kadi mantra. Kadi mantra, you know about it. Kadi mantra. So Kadi, actually, I mean, we know the syllables, and in fact, Lakshmidhara, the medieval commentator, explains what the syllables mean. It's a very highly coded thing. So if you recite the Kadi mantra from left to right, so to speak, that is from the first syllable to the end, it actually manifests the goddess. She'll become visible. If you want her to disappear, which you might, because you don't necessarily want her to be there all the time. If you want her to disappear, you can recite the same mantra backwards. Right? See, this we know about. We know very well from Tantra, mantra classes. All of this is very familiar. The part that is less familiar is the fact that here we have a music which is departed from that, but nonetheless somehow reinvented or reimagined these techniques, so that anybody, the person sitting in the audience, a merchant from Manali, could actually do this just by listening.
Sorry. I just think it's not a true literal reading of the song or music in that sense. For example, so for example, when I was growing up, then in my village also we would sing some ragas, and it was generating some kinds, I will say, some kind of bhavana, some kinds of feeling, mood.
Right.
But it is not like it is like an image that was coming in that mind. And I think somewhere like debate this whole idea of the internal and external. That I think this I think also discussed a lot in Chinese music. Chinese music tradition.
I don't know much about it.
So in that Chinese music tradition, we have like two terms, Li and Yue. So it is considered that Li is like a ritual part is external, and Yue is internal. So always you have like regulations of each other. So I think same way, like even if you are discussing like inner kinds of things, and I agree with you that you have that peaceful inner mood that evokes, that also externalize some kinds of from outside. But again, this internalization, externalization both goes together in that way. And the idea that the sari gama could when decide on how much it is like that people will see like for every note and everything.
No, I don't think that's an important point. I'm glad you said that. Actually, it's not at every single point. Nobody should read this like a crossword puzzle. It's not like that. It's definitely not like that. All of that I would say, my feeling about it, but I'm not a musicologist, but my feeling is the kind of cultural historian that's familiar with these materials, is that you have within the whole musical language of this, you have chunks of pattern phrasings, which are indeed heavily determined. So
maybe it's working as a blueprint, but
No, there's a lot of things, and actually the musicologist will be the first to say that you cannot translate the music into some kind of paraphrase. We had the same problem, you remember, when we talked about the poetry, about Aham poetry.
And second, that whole idea of the iconicity, I understand that if you're crying songs, like somebody has written articles or videos about crying songs, and how crying songs also generate certain kinds of iconicity. But that how it like very much different from visualization, because if you didn't have this idea of the god or Sarupa in that sense, like the image of the god, then you will also generating certain idea of the visuals. All be like songs generate some idea of visualization.
That's true. No, you could have a whole range of these things that would be possible, but the point of this thing is to have a classical musical tradition which somehow shifted into a mode in which these kinds of effects were programmed, intentional and possible. And also possible in a kind of democratic way, in the sense that anybody could now. We have to go to the Kuyata.